Peter Tessem and Paul Knutsen were two young men from Norway who went with fellow Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen on his 1918 Arctic expedition. Aboard ship Maud.Peter Tessem was a carpenter and Paul Knutsen was an able-bodied seaman. 1 year into the expedition, in 1919, Amundsen left Peter Tessem and Paul Knutsen behind at Cape Chelyuskin after having made winter quarters there. Amundsen chose Peter Tessem because he had been suffering from chronic headaches throughout the winter and was not fit to continue to the long expedition. He selected Paul Knutsen because he had previously wintered in the Kara Sea in 1914–1915 with Otto Sverdrup on ship Eclipse, so he knew about the locations of the caches of provisions that had been left in the area by Sverdrup. The men were instructed to wait for the freeze-up of the Kara Sea and then sledge southwestwards along the western coast of the Taimyr Peninsula, towards Dixon, carrying the mail and the valuable scientific data accumulated by the expedition. Meanwhile, the Maud continued eastwards into the Laptev Sea. These two men disappeared mysteriously during their 800 km trip over the ice and were never seen again. The Norwegian's journey was identical in its last 600 kilometers to the sledge trip undertaken a few years earlier at the orders of Baron Edward Tulby, Zaria Captain Nikolai Kolometsev and Cossack Stepan Rastorgiev. In 1901, Kolometsev and Rastorgiev had covered the distance from Bukhta Archera SW of Taimyr Island to Dixon in 1 month, so Tessem and Knutsen's trip should not have taken much longer. However, almost a year passed and nothing was heard of the two Norwegians. Norwegian search expedition. The alarm was raised in March 1920 by Amundsen's brother Leon when he got a telegram from his brother, Roald Amundsen, who was then wintering near Ion Island, in the East Siberian Sea, was inquiring whether his men had reached home safely. Veteran Arctic explorer Otto Sverdrup, acting on behalf of the Royal Norwegian Department for Churches and Education, tried to conduct a search by sending schooner Hyman to the Kara Sea on the 23rd of August 1920. However, the schooner encountered heavy ice already east of Dixon, and Captain Lars Jacobsen was forced to turn back when he was close to the Mikhailov Peninsula. Jacobsen tried then to hire dogs or reindeer for an overland expedition, but the practical difficulties he encountered became unsurmountable, for the area was practically uninhabited except for the little station at Dixon. Soviet search expedition. Finally, in 1921, Nikifor Boguschev led Soviet expedition in search for Peter Tessem and Paul Knutsen on request of the government of Norway. Captain Lars Jacobsen and Alfred Karlsen, another Norwegian who had been with him at Dixon and who acted as interpreter, accompanied Boguschev. Boguschev had a good impression of Jacobsen and Karlsen. He thought that they were tough, reliable and helpful. At the start of the search, they had a letter dated November 18, 1919, found about a tenth of the way from Cape Chelyuskin to Dixon. It was placed in a tink and in a cairn on M.Y.'s Vilde. It said that Tessem and Knutsen were heading towards Dixon in good health with provisions for 20 days. On August 2, 1919, some distance southwest of Cape Vilde, the Norwegian sledge was found by Captain Jacobsen, a Norwegian who went with Boguschev, indicating that something had gone wrong with the two men. Further, he found other materials near Cape Sturlaga. On August 16, 1919, Boguschev found a fireplace with smoked men's bones near Cape Primetny, including a skull, empty cartridges, and a broken knife, suggesting a physical struggle. After examination of the things, Bigashev decided that the bones belonged to one of the missing Norwegian seamen. However, after Bigashev's death, it was presumed that the bones belonged to somebody from Rusanov's expedition. The expedition of 1922 found a theodolite mail and other things on the Zeldiv River, 80 kilometers from Dixon, belonging to Knutsen and Tessem. Closer to Dixon, on the Aboyna River, 2 pairs of Norwegian skis and part of a sleeping bag were found. Finally, in July 1922, 3 kilometers from Dixon, Bigashev found the skeleton of the man wearing a golden watch engraved with Peter Tessem's name. The search was abandoned, but before Captain Jacobsen and Alfred Karlsson returned to Norway via Krasnoyarsk, they had established good friendships with many Russians. Owing to the good character, the Soviet authorities and many persons in different places of Russia went out of the way to assist them. This was not always easy considering the penury of the times in the early Soviet Union. Remains found by chance. In August 1922, a geological expedition led by N. Vanziev found by chance the mail and scientific data that Tessem and Knutsen had been carrying. The valuable documents lay strewn about, abandoned near the mouth of the Zelediva River. Later, the skis belonging to the missing Norwegians were found at the mouth of the Aboyna River. In July 1922, a mummified corpse, practically a skeleton, was found on the mainland shore across from Dixon Island within sight of the weather station that was the 2 men's destination. Forensic analysis revealed that it was one of the 2 Norwegian explorers and that the most likely cause of death was starvation. Another possible cause of death is that the Norwegian hurried when he saw the lights of the polar station, so that he slipped and fell down. He might have knocked himself unconscious hitting a boulder, could not stand up, and froze to death. It is not clear, however, whether the corpse by the shore was Peter Tessem's or Paul Knutsen's. The golden watch with Tessem's name engraved on it led to the presumption that it was Tessem. The photo of the skeleton was taken by Georgy Rybin. The other body was never found. The dead man was buried farther up the slope in the same spot and his grave was marked with a driftwood cross. 2 years later, the crew of Norwegian ship Veslekari erected a more imposing large cross on the spot. In 1958, the remains were moved to the top of the cape where there is now a granite monument with a plaque inscribed in Russian and in the Roman alphabet to honor the memory of the dead Norwegian. The inscription reads, Tessem, Norwegian seaman, member of the expedition MS Maud, died 1920.